Story 1. The continued breeding of dogs with severe genetic problems must stop. Dogs that cannot give birth without a cesarean section, cannot breathe through their crushed faces, or suffer from chronic health problems such as defective hearts should no longer be bred. Stop breeding them. Story 2. As someone who raised bettas, they need at least 5 gallons, preferably 10. They require warm water, plants, and places to hide. They do not do well in dirty water. Bettas can live many years. Overbreeding at some pet stores has contributed to tumors and early deaths. If someone says, "My uncle had one in a vase," stop. You can keep a cat alive in a bathroom, but that doesn't mean it's kind. Bettas have a quality of life, show signs of pain, distress, interest, and recognition. They itch themselves. They may not be the sharpest, but they are not toys. In their natural habitat, bettas live in rice paddies, marshes, and warm ponds. The dirty water there is often tannin-rich from plants and shallower than most fish habitats. They do not sit in their own waste. Bettas are major jumpers, so get a tank lid. They can live together because they can sit yards apart without interacting or fighting. Do not make them look at each other all the time. It stresses them. Occasional flaring is fine, but it is not fun to provoke them. Never put a male and female together. They do not get lonely. Do not put females together unless you have a separate tank for each if they fight or if they are from the same clutch. A female group or sorority needs a large tank, typically 20 gallons or more. They tolerate each other but do not enjoy each other's company. Provide lots of plants. A happy, healthy betta is engaged and interested, not swimming listlessly in circles. They can actually see and hear you. They have good color vision and can recognize you, though vision is blurry beyond a few inches. They will follow you as you move, often expecting food but also showing general interest. They may also try to challenge you. Bettas love napping just out of the water on a leaf or log. You can catch them sleeping and surprise them. They get excited when they see treats. One of my bettas liked to peek through grass to watch baby shrimp. He did not eat them but followed their movements. He also watched the snail and tried to interact with it. He was a unique individual. Treat bettas with kindness as you would any animal. Do not flush or neglect them. Story 3. Keeping whales and dolphins in concrete tanks and forcing them to perform tricks for human entertainment to receive food. Story 4. Adopting working dog breeds when you live in a small apartment and work full-time. I live in an apartment complex with 750 square foot apartments, and one of my neighbors has an Australian Shepherd. That dog is slowly going crazy from lack of activity. It spins in circles and barks the entire 5 minutes it is outside to use the bathroom, then it goes right back into the apartment. It is distressing. Story 5. Leaving your dogs in your small yard all day without walking them causes them to bark non-stop and annoy your neighbors. Story 6. Failing to train and socialize a dog means not teaching them how to behave. As a result, they never learn what to do and become so nervous or reactive that they experience a literal nightmare whenever anything new occurs. Story 7. I cringe when people talk about declawing cats as if it is a cute or normal thing. Anyone who does that is a cruel and despicable monster. Story 8. Overweight potbelly pigs. Most pig breeds reach 400 to 500 pounds. However, miniature pigs, such as potbelly pigs, should not exceed 200 pounds. Their stomachs should not drag on the ground, and they should be able to move themselves fully. The number of times I have seen morbidly obese potbelly pigs because people think pigs are just fat is astounding. Also, obese miniature horses. Story 9. 95% of hamster care advice given by pet stores is incorrect. Additionally, I have never heard a story about hamsters dying that is not someone gleefully describing abuse or neglect. Story 10. Not euthanizing an animal when it is clearly in pain simply because you cannot bear to be without them. Story 11. I expect some criticism, but giving animals chemotherapy is problematic. They do not consent to that suffering, and it only delays coping with the loss by another 6 months. Story 12. I'll take my downvotes. A veterinarian promoting prolonged life medications or surgery versus euthanasia when it is an end-of-life situation. My wife, who works in veterinary medicine, always says to me when we have to deal with this, "You are only prolonging their suffering to delay facing your personal loss." That is outright cruelty. I don't think I could ever handle working in veterinary medicine after she said that. They deal with that every day. Story 13. This may upset some people, but some refuse to set any boundaries with their dog. They never say no, give it everything it wants for free, shower it with constant affection, take the dog everywhere they go, and then think it is cute when the dog becomes very sad when they are not around. That dog is not just sad. It is depressed and anxious because it has not been allowed to be independent and has developed separation anxiety as a result of coddling and unhealthy attachment. Your dog does not need to get in the car with you every time you go somewhere. It does not need to be constantly next to you or touching you. It does not need to follow you around constantly. It certainly does not need to come between you and your family. It needs love and affection, but some people are obsessed with their dog to a level that they may not realize is unhealthy for the dog and for themselves. This behavior may not be abuse, but it is extremely irresponsible. It causes many negative psychological effects for the dog when the owner is not around. Story 14. Trying to teach a dog not to urinate in the house by grabbing its head and putting its face to the mess is incorrect. Older people tend to do this more often, and it is wrong and unpleasant. Story 15. Blowing marijuana smoke at your cat or dog does not make them feel high. It makes them feel sick. It is harmful to them and not funny. I do not care if you smoke, but please do not harm your pets. Story 16. Rubbing your puppy's nose in their urine or feces when they have an accident indoors is inappropriate. Or, God forbid, hitting them for any reason. It is very frustrating. If you cannot teach your dog without being unkind, then do not get a dog. Story 17. Catch and release fishing involves putting a hook through a fish's mouth and dragging it out of the water, which is obviously torturous. However, eating the fish provides some justification. Without eating it, the practice seems like torture is the goal. Story 18. Small animals are being sold as starter pets for children, only to be returned with broken legs or dead. It is distressing. They are not starter pets. They are living and sensitive. Story 19. Hitting dogs, cats, or any animal with newspapers or throwing things at them is wrong. I remember when I was younger, going to friends' houses and seeing this with their parents and pets. I always thought it was strange because I would never treat my cat that way. Now I realize how wrong it is to hit an animal. Story 20. Keeping birds in cages is similar to having a dog constantly chained to its kennel or a fish in a bowl with barely enough space to turn around. Story 21. Any form of hurting animals purely for entertainment is unacceptable. Examples include bullfighting, cockfighting, trophy hunting, and catch-and-release fishing. Either harvest the animal for resources or stop torturing it. Story 22. It is unbelievable how many people buy a hamster and let their child mistreat it until it dies. The reason so many people have stories about pet hamsters dying is that most people consider them to be walking pom-poms they can treat however they like. Story 23. People who crop dogs' ears to make them look scarier. I don't know how normalized it is in other places, but many people do it in my country. There is no benefit other than the owner liking how it looks. Story 24. Cat declawing is absolutely cruel and unnecessary but was once common, at least in the area where I live. Maybe it is just where I live, but 20 years ago it was normal to get your indoor cat declawed. I cringe at the thought of it. Story 25. Have you ever seen those hermit crabs with painted shells sold in beach stores with a little container and some pellets? The ones that live for a few months and then die? Those hermit crabs actually require large tanks with filtered water, lots of decor to climb on, and a large amount of substrate. They are social animals that need companions, and you should have at least 5 alternate shells available at all times for them to swap out when they want, especially if they have painted shells. The paint is toxic to them because when it chips off, they will eat it. If cared for properly, they can live about 15 years. Just about any pet labeled a kid's pet is heavily neglected. Story 26. I couldn't find it far down enough. Cages for small animals. I can only speak about hamsters as I have owned quite a few and still feel guilty there was not enough animal welfare knowledge promoted about space and items they need. I have only ever seen one cage in local shops that meets minimum size and depth requirements. It was 50 by 50 by 100 centimeters with 20 centimeters depth for burrowing. The wheels are horrifically tiny, not to mention the wired mesh ones. Hamster spines need to be straight, and there should not be any bars or holes that can catch or cause injury. The same applies to running discs. Try running around on a crooked treadmill and see what it does to your body. Most cages I see in shops are good for nothing more than transport or as a temporary box while you clean their main cage. The same goes for bedding. A lot of wooden bedding, especially the kind that contains dust, can cause skin reactions when it comes in contact with their urine and cause respiratory issues. Story 27. Continuously feeding your pet whatever you are eating is dangerous. Look it up before handing anything to your dog. Even grapes are fatal to them. Story 28. Breeding brachycephalic breeds like the French Bulldog is harmful because they cannot breathe properly, leading to various health issues and a lifetime of suffering. Other harmful practices include declawing cats, tail docking or ear docking, leaving your pet home alone every day for more than 8 hours without stimulation or interaction, crating your dog for long periods, especially over 2 hours, and having overweight animals. Story 29. Hamster balls. Hamsters have poor eyesight, and hamster balls reduce their ability to sense their surroundings. They will hop right in because they are very curious, not because they enjoy it. Tiny Tails plastic cages are often called tiny jails by employees. Hamsters need a minimum 40-gallon long tank, not a small enclosure shaped like a farmhouse. If you have a hamster, visit hamster care communities online for advice. Story 30. Watching those cute videos of growling chihuahuas where the owners deliberately taunt them to the point that the dog feels so threatened they need to lash out or attack. If you watch these videos for entertainment, you are contributing to animal abuse, in my opinion. Story 31. Treating your pets like toys is harmful. They need attention, veterinary visits, proper food. Avoid cheap items and always check expiration dates and playtime. My parents are not pet people. My first rabbit died because my father did not take him to the veterinarian when he was sick. People can be careless. Story 32. Look, my guinea pigs are outside all day long in our yard, literally without any fences. I open a small door in the morning so they can go out whenever they want. At night, I keep them locked up for their own safety. Reaction of other people. Wow, your guinea pigs are so joyful. I used to have some when I was little, but they were just sitting around. Yes, in a cage as big as a towel, I would be depressed too. Story 33. Crating your dog, especially in crates where your dog should be able to stand up, turn around, and lie down for hours at a time is harmful. There is a reason that practice is illegal in many countries in Europe. Story 34. Cropping and pinning ears on dogs and docking tails. It really bothers me seeing people mutilate beautiful dogs so they can look tough or conform to an outdated breed standard. If the animal was born with floppy ears and a long tail, let it be unless there is a medical reason. Story 35. Not putting in even the smallest amount of effort into researching your future pets before you buy them. I browse a bunch of animal communities, and you would think some of these people get pets just to harm them in the most inhumane ways possible. Story 36. Leaving cats alone for days at a time while you go out of town may seem acceptable because you have an automatic feeder and an automatic litter box, since cats are considered independent. Story 37. Shoeing horses in ways that do not benefit the animal, such as keeping toes long to exaggerate movement. Story 38. Breeding of pugs and similar short-snout breeds, breeding of munchkins and Scottish folds, ear cropping, tail docking, and refusing to euthanize an animal that is severely ill, subjecting it to treatments that cause suffering just to boast about the effort and money spent, completely disregards the fact that the animal only experiences torture. Story 39. People laughing about their hamster's death or saying that they are hard to keep alive are not. You are just being neglectful. Story 40. When I think about breeding, it quickly becomes uncomfortable and unpleasant, but it is at the core of the creation of what we call domesticated animals. Breeding in conservation for wildlife might be done differently and more regulated, but it is still breeding. Manual collection of semen. Semen extraction using needles. Manual insemination. Waiting for the animal's heat cycle, sometimes not waiting at all. Contracts made about breeding before the female or male purebred dog, cat, or other animal is even born or only weeks old, with their bodies already planned to be matched with another. Actively and logistically placing two or sometimes multiple animals in heat together, sometimes just one, in a space where humans oversee the mounting. Restricting females from mounting. Placing males in heat near others despite possible violence. Constant genital manipulation. Like humans, their reproductive organs are sensitive. Mass castration to minimize undesired breeding in these controlled spaces. Thousands of dollars paid for semen from exceptional specimens at livestock shows. We are deeply involved in this process, and it's surprising that it is not often called out for being somewhat depraved. It is wild to me. I watched a video showing frustrated workers at a pig facility dedicated to semen collection for breeding. All the male pigs were aggressive toward each other and the workers, making the place hazardous. The workers had to manually stimulate these pigs for semen collection, and sometimes the pigs did not ejaculate, which made the workers stimulate them harder, causing injury to the pig's genitals. This sounds like a horror story because it is. It must be very strange to clock in and manually stimulate multiple aggressive male pigs with your paycheck depending on it. All of this violates what we as a modern society strive to be, so why allow it to happen to other beings? It is just disturbing. Story 41. Not giving the cat food whenever they want it. Cats who have to wait until feeding time might starve. Story 42. Placing cats and dogs in plastic, sweaty backpacks or bags just to look cute is abusive. Story 43. Clipping wings in pet birds. It is illegal in a few countries but a common practice in many others. While it does not hurt the bird if you trim their flight feathers, it is basically like taping straight braces to a dog's legs and saying it is to prevent them from running away from you. Story 44. Cats without toys, windows, or mental stimulation are just expected to be there and entertain themselves. Like humans, dogs, and other animals, they need something to play with. Also, show them you care. Don't just expect them to show you love without receiving any in return. Cats are not difficult all the time. It is just normalized to ignore them. Story 45. Walking horses. I had no idea how the horses were tortured in order to make them prance like that. Basically, they pick up their feet quickly because it is painful to walk. Nails are driven into their feet, chemical burns cause pain, and they walk on stacked platforms to make their legs look longer, which is also painful. I cried when I found out. I cannot imagine being tortured while people around me are clapping. Story 46. Well, according to my dog, it is staying up past our bedtime, which is about 10 p.m., and sitting at my desk working on my novel. Story 47. Mice and rats are not appropriate pets for children and many adults. They require nearly as much attention as dogs and much more care because they get sick easily and have a tendency for tumors, as most were originally bred from laboratory animals. The cages sold in pet stores are outrageously small and totally inappropriate. Even if you have a large enough cage, you still need to give them playtime in a room or other large enclosed space. They are social animals, so you need at least 3 at a time to meet their needs. Their homes need to be cleaned once a week to prevent dust buildup, which makes them sick. Never use wood chips or sawdust because they are too dusty. Use fabrics only. Story 48. Having your cat go outside. Your cat is not a natural predator. It is a spoiled hobby hunter that enjoys the comfort of easy rest and food at home, only to go out in perfect condition for fun and kill disadvantaged wildlife when bored. Natural predators are relatively scarce because accessible prey is limited. Many well-rested and fed cats inhabit areas with buildings, creating zones where natural wildlife cannot exist. Moreover, these cats take away scarce natural prey from local malnourished, weakened predators who must hunt to survive, only to have their well-deserved daily mouse snatched away by one of dozens of spoiled house cats that receive all the advantages humans provide. Story 49. My big concern is allowing cats or dogs to roam freely outside. It is not only dangerous for them and can easily lead to sickness, injury, or death, but it is also harmful to the surrounding wildlife. It can even be dangerous for pet owners or pedestrians who come into contact with the pet. Please keep your pets indoors. If it is a feral cat that you feed but cannot coax inside or are not equipped to take in, please find a trap, neuter, and release program to prevent a larger problem in the future. Story 50. Keeping exotic pets is concerning. The exotic pet trade in general is upsetting. I dislike seeing videos of owls, raccoons, prairie dogs, monkeys, and similar animals kept as pets appear in my feed. They always seem so miserable. It is difficult to accept birds in general being kept as pets. Also, avoid feeding wild animals with the possible exception of using bird feeders. Do not feed birds bread. Do not feed skunks, foxes, raccoons, bears, deer, or similar animals just to post cute videos online. This behavior makes the animals dependent on and unafraid of humans. Pet food is not nutritionally suitable for them. Eventually, something bad happens, and the animals end up being killed for biting someone or for conflicts arising from competition for the food. Story 51. Prong collars. I see people using them as a dog's walking collar, loose and low around the neck, pulling on it with no leash training in sight. They are just suffocating their dog regularly. It makes me extremely angry, even more so than retractable leashes. Story 52. Farming and killing animals for food. People in Western countries are horrified by the thought of eating cats or dogs but think nothing of eating cows, pigs, sheep, and chickens. A lot of abuse happens in farming, and no animal has a good or easy time at the slaughterhouse. Yet, because they are not pets, people do not give it much consideration. Story 53. Unpopular opinion, but hear me out. One dog per home. As humans, we love, spoil, and care for pack animals by leaving them alone most days. I feel so bad for dogs that exist in worlds of mostly solitary confinement. That is how humans are punished in prison. Innocent pack animals being isolated for no wrongdoing is abuse. There is one simple solution. Get your dog a sibling. Story 54. Zoos. I went to a zoo that had bobcats in a tiny cage right next to birds in a tiny cage. All I could think about was how stressful it must be for these wild animals to want to hunt prey and then be stuck right next to them but unable to catch them. I also saw big beautiful bears and tigers in enclosures hardly big enough for them to run around. Story 55. Any pet bird. Imagine you have the ability to fly and soar with the clouds, and someone decides to clip your wings and keep you in a tiny cage forever. Story 56. Killing them for their meat and taking the cow's calves, turning her into a milk-producing animal. Story 57. Maybe a hot take, but I think any kind of breeding is wrong to do. We purposely let two dogs procreate for the selfish act of selling their offspring. We remove puppies from their parents without their consent. I have heard the argument that in nature, parents often abandon their offspring by themselves, but we are taking that choice away from them. Could very well be that some mother dog did not want to give up her pups. Story 58. Keeping fish in a fishbowl and keeping social fish like goldfish alone. Keeping hamsters in a wire cage, although they are not climbers, and providing insufficient bedding material to burrow. Forcing indoor kittens from a young age to be alone with no other kittens. Cats are a social species, and exceptions prove the rule. Keeping rats alone from a young age. Rats have a pecking order, and a group starts at 3 animals. Story 59. I came back to this because something came to mind. I ride horses, mainly doing dressage, but I also do some occasional jumping. There is a lot of abuse that is normalized in the higher levels of dressage, and it frustrates me greatly. The sport was originally supposed to be about appreciating the natural athleticism of horses as well as the technical aspects of riding. It is no longer about that. Now, it is about who can do the flashiest movements that are not even natural to the horses anymore. Many horses in advanced dressage levels are not carrying themselves correctly. Their hind end is not being used properly, and their heads are being pushed behind the vertical, which is known as rollker. For those unfamiliar, the vertical position is when the horse's head is flexed to create a vertical line. Rollker is flexing the head beyond that point, like running with your chin on your neck. It is uncomfortable for the horse, restricting their breathing and movement. Some people nerve their horses' ears and tails, which basically stops the horse from communicating pain and stress. Horses express a lot through their ears and tail. If they are unhappy, their ears will be pinned back, or their tail will be swishing. Even these signs of distress are normalized in higher levels of dressage. Another thing that is normalized and frustrating is the overextended trot. In a normal extended trot, the front feet should fall in time with the diagonal hind feet. The horse also should not overextend its front legs. When a trot is overextended, the horse fully extends its front legs, and they no longer fall in time with the back legs. This is not a natural movement and is likely harmful to their tendons. Improper riding in general is very common in upper-level dressage. Another point is about bits. A bit is a piece of equipment placed in a horse's mouth, where there are no teeth, designed to apply pressure to assist with the rein aids. Bitless bridles apply pressure on the nose and face instead of the mouth. Both can be abusive depending on the rider, the bit, and the bridle. Generally, it is easier to accidentally hurt a horse with a bit, especially if the rider does not know their own strength. I personally will never use a bit with any sort of lever mechanism because it usually multiplies the force by 2, which I believe is unfair to the horse. I see many upper-level dressage riders applying too much pressure to their horses' mouths. There is good contact, and then there is having the reins so tight that you are pulling on the horse's mouth. I love what the sport is supposed to be, but improper and abusive practices are far too normalized. I do not compete because I do not want to participate in something that actively rewards these practices. Sorry for the long rant, but I am passionate about this topic. Story 60. The hamster cages at pet stores are inadequate. There is not a single major pet store chain in the United States that sells enclosures appropriate for hamsters. Yet they all sell hamsters. They profit from people's ignorance. Story 61. The bio-industry, including the dairy industry, has not been questioned so far. This shows how normalized it has become. This is also true for me, but it really is not normal. Story 62. Consuming animal products, unless it is for survival, contradicts the belief that non-human animals deserve respect and rights and should not be abused. Killing someone who does not want to die is inherently abusive, regardless of how it is done. Animals are treated as products and are routinely subjected to severe abuse. They are kept in conditions where they self-mutilate or harm others, have body parts removed by farmers, and are put into gas chambers among other horrific practices. These beings have the same capacity to feel and suffer as cats and dogs. Although the context varies, it is never in their best interest, and when not necessary, it becomes abuse. Given the environmental destruction caused by animal agriculture, including water pollution, freshwater use, land use, crop use, species extinction, deforestation, antibiotic resistance, ocean dead zones, and methane emissions, it is possibly the greatest abuse. To the planet, not just to individual animals whose lives are taken. There are also issues such as post-traumatic stress disorder and abuse prevalent among slaughterhouse workers, and a significantly heightened risk of disease spread due to animal agriculture. The pet food industry is also appalling and highlights speciesism. Whatever your reason for consuming animal products, ask yourself if it would be acceptable for you or a companion animal in the same situation. Story 63. The removal of offspring from animal mothers is becoming normalized, such as with cats and dogs. End of thread. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.